Good morning. This is a recording for Saturday, April 6th. Yesterday, we started looking at the barriers to empathy and discussed how sympathy is actually an enemy of empathy and can even be an incubator for shame. Today, let's let's talk about another barrier to empathy, something that Brené Brown calls stacking the deck. In many ways, this is related to sympathy-seeking. Over and over, Brené Brown's research participants described how devastated they were after they finally mustered up the courage to reach out to someone and then had their story trumped by the "you think you've got a bad" card. For example, "I see your drunk mother and raise your drug addict sister," or "I'll see you're unmarried and unworthy and raise your single mom." When we compete to see whose situation is worse, whose oppression is the most real, or whose any ism is the most serious, we lose sight of the fact that most of our struggles stem from the same place: powerlessness and disconnection. If we spend our resources attempting to outdo one another, competing for the quote-unquote last place, or stepping on each other to climb out of shame, shame will always prevail. It will prevail because being told, "oh, that's nothing," can actually make us feel like nothing. Most of us will feed shame with silence before we risk sharing something that we fear might not be as bad as someone else's situation, or bad enough to warrant empathy. Brené Brown gives this example to illustrate stacking the deck concept. Lorraine, a woman in her early 20s, talked about the shame she felt when she finally opened up with her college roommate about the fact that her teenage brother was schizophrenic and had a history of violence before he was stabilized on his medications. "She has asked him about me several times," Lorraine says. "I finally told her about him and started crying. I explained that I'm not ashamed of him, but I am ashamed that my parents have him living in a treatment center." To that, the roommate just stood up and said, "That's no big deal. My friend's little sister was killed in a car wreck. That's got to be way worse, right?" And then she walked into the bathroom. Lorraine says, "I felt so small. I wish I hadn't said anything at all." We don't know why Lorraine's roommate was unable or unwilling to respond with empathy. Perhaps she was fearful about the level of emotion she saw in Lorraine, or maybe she just didn't want to know. There could be many reasons. And here are some other common responses as examples of how easy it is to skip right over empathy if we're not engaged in mindful compassion. For example, someone says, "I feel like my marriage is falling apart right before my eyes." One response could be, "Oh no, you and Tim are such a great couple. I'm sure everything will be fine." And this response signifies you have not been heard. Another response to this could be, "At least you have a marriage. John and I haven't had a real marriage for years." This is "I'm bringing it back to me" response. It lacks concern and empathy completely. Actually, there are not many hard and fast rules about empathy, but this might be one. Saying "at least" is not a good lead-in for an empathetic response. For example, "I had a miscarriage." "Well, at least you could get pregnant." "I've been diagnosed with cancer." "Well, at least you caught it early." My sister is really struggling with her alcoholism. Well, at least it's not drugs. This at least response is primarily about our own discomfort. At leasting someone is equivalent to shutting them down. Now, the empathy response could be something like this: I am really sorry. That can be a very lonely place. Is there anything I can do? This response is not judgmental. It's an attempt to reflect back how someone might be feeling. And even if they are not feeling lonely, they have a chance to respond, and they know that you are trying to understand their world, see the world through their lens. To be sure, the pressure to get it right or say the perfect thing can be the biggest barrier to empathy and compassion. We start to experience anxiety about saying the right thing, and before we know it, we've missed the opportunity to be empathic and compassionate. And we start to diminish the situation or change the subject or walk away. Lorraine's roommate didn't have to say anything magical. She could have just said, "Gosh, that must be so hard for everyone in your family." Or, "That would be hard for me too. How is your brother doing in the center?" Often, just hearing about someone's shaming experience can cause us to want to shield ourselves. We don't want to hear it. It's too painful just to listen to. One reason empathy and compassion are so powerful is the fact that they say to someone, "I can hear this. This is hard, but I can be in the space with you." And that's immensely powerful. So how can we relax about our responses to somebody's suffering and really be present? Really lean into their story and try to understand their world. I think that first we need to acknowledge again and again that shame is a universal experience and that there is nothing wrong with feeling shame. We need to learn to normalize this emotion for ourselves and accept that we are suffering for it. Then it will be easier for us to connect with others sharing their shaming experience with us. So today, let's do a practice that connects us with our shame and reminds us that this is a human experience of suffering. And it's okay to feel what we feel. It's okay to not to feel it. And it's essential to give ourselves empathy in these shameful moments, because those are the moments of suffering. Our suffering, no matter how big or small it is compared to others. So take a comfortable position, and as always, take a few moments to settle. Settle into your body, your heart, your mind. Settle into this moment, right here, right now. As always, let your breath be nice and natural. And just see if you can find some spaciousness in your breathing, allowing all the experiences of the present moment to flow through you as energy that they are, without struggle. Now gently recall a shameful experience, and with a lot of kindness to yourself, start exploring how this feels in your body. Remember, shame is a full contact emotion, so even though it may start somewhere in the pit of your belly, it may travel all over the body, making you want to shrink, hide, disappear, or on the contrary, it may make you feel the surge of anger for having this kind of feeling and thoughts. It may make you want to lash out, blaming everybody and everything in your way. Whatever it is for you, whatever your response is, try to simply stay with this experience. Allow whatever is happening in your body, mind, and heart to just exist. Remind yourself that even though you are experiencing all these uncomfortable, unwanted feelings, you are not just that. You are not your shame. You're so much bigger than that. And even right now, there are other things going on for you. Your breath, the stable base of your seat, the loving presence of your fellow practitioners, my voice. And start repeating after me. Shame is a moment of suffering. Suffering is a part of life. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the compassion I need. As you repeat this mantra after me, notice if anything starts shifting. Maybe yes, maybe no. Again, it's not about forcefully changing your experience. It's not about pushing anything away. It's simply about creating space around it, ventilating it with your steady and slow breathing. Shame is a moment of suffering. Suffering is a part of life. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the compassion I need. We all experience shame. It's a universal emotion. You are not alone. Maybe even say to yourself, how human of me to feel this way. How human of me to want these feelings to go away. And return to our mantra. Shame is a moment of suffering. Suffering is a part of life. We all experience shame sometimes. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the compassion I need. Now take a moment to reflect how exactly you can be kind to yourself in this moment. Maybe you give yourself a hug, or you give yourself a kind word. Or maybe you need to reach out to a trusted friend and ask to be hugged, to be held, perhaps even without any explanation. This is a moment of suffering. Suffering is a part of life. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the compassion I need. And now gently let go of your practice. And as always, scan your body and notice what's going on for you right now, physically, emotionally, mentally. How are you really? And as you go through your day today, I invite you to stay with this reflection. When somebody shares their shaming experience with you, what's your default response? Do you engage in stacking the deck or at leasting sometimes? And remember, even if you discover that you do, it's okay. Most of us have done this and will do this again. So enjoy your discoveries, even if you don't like what you find out about yourself. It's perfect. We don't need to worry about saying the perfect thing. What counts is our genuine intention to be present and to try to hear the person out. Nothing more, nothing less. As always, if you're inspired to share your experiences, your discoveries, please do so in the comments to this video or in our private Mindful Morning Circle group. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you tomorrow.